Welcome to the motive. What is the motive?
What is the motive? Background, right?
I'm going to give you the actual definition again. I'm going to keep saying it. A reason for doing something, especially one that is hidden or not obvious. So that's what we're doing here. Trying to do something. I felt like there's a better definition I liked before. Basically giving a reason for learning, for doing something that you might not know, that isn't obvious, that you might not understand. So today we're actually going to talk about what's going to be on our newsletter that comes to our clients. 4 years. I heard it in 2019, which the following years after that turned out to be the biggest years in mortgage ever.
History.
Yes. And I've heard it recently as well for the last 1 or 2 years. And guess what, everybody? There is no crash. There isn't a crash coming. I doubt there will be a crash coming. I'll be surprised if there's a crash that comes. But if you keep saying enough, maybe in 10, 20, 50, 60 years, there will be a crash and you'll be correct. So there's that. So yeah, I don't think a crash is coming. I mean, let's see here. We start on in our newsletter, and this is just like an alternative way because some people can't read long enough, even though our newsletters are pretty short and sweet to the point. So it's a very simple read, but we want to be able to spread the news in multiple ways. So it's easier for you, whether you like listening, whether you like watching, or whether you like reading. But this year, we are not expecting a crash, and we're not expecting a crash next year. In fact, home prices, and this comes exact from the chief economist of Freddie Mac, says we project that home prices will likely continue to rise at a consistent rate. Home prices are not supposed to go down, but mortgages are probably not going to be as popular or not as many of them in 2024 because there's no need for them in 2024, right? So we got homes, there's inventory issues, obviously. We've had low inventory. That'll probably pick up a little bit, especially come spring when people start buying, people making decisions and stuff like that to buy. But right now, there's no need for it. We are just doing the math, right? Well, it's like, we know they say 2/3 of outstanding mortgages right now are under a 4% interest rate. Well, 1/3 of all homeowners own their home free and clear, right? So that means 66% of people finance it. And if I take out the 1/3 that is over 4%, that's like 22% of people. So like less than 1 out of 4 people have over a 4% interest rate. And that might be half the people that either never did anything or maybe bought their home in the last year and a half, 2 years that it's actually been higher. Which really, why do you need to do a loan? You don't need to do a loan if you're just trying to restructure that debt. Now, why you do need to do a loan, why you would do a loan, the only reason I can think of is you're leveraging your house's equity to pay off other debts or to use to invest in something, or you're buying. Because buying, it doesn't matter what the rate is. You can restructure debt. It's a lot easier to restructure that than it is to restructure value. You are not in control of values per se, but you can control how you leverage and how you restructure your debt by refinancing or whatever it is down the road. So if you don't own a home, you should buy a home, forget about the rate and do it. And I think know about it a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. It's not horrible. Yes, you probably should have bought 2 years ago, but you still buy now because values are still going up and you can restructure that debt. That's my view. What's your thought on this part of the topic with the market being slow, values going up, and honestly, probably not a lot of people needing to do a loan?
Yeah, I mean, it's confusing, right? I mean, you just mentioned a ton of data and things going on, and after COVID, when rates were at their lowest, and all these weird things going on. But my take on it is, I don't think there's going to be any type of crash or anything. You said inventories, all those people that you said, 2/3 of that 66, right, percent that have mortgages have lower than 4%. That's why people aren't moving, because they don't want to sell their house, upgrade, and get a higher rate. They don't want to move cross country for the job because they don't want to take a higher rate. The rates do play into that inventory. So once we see the rates come down, and this, I think that's going to open up this fear of this crash that everybody thinks. You were around in the '08 times. I mean, post that, that scared a lot of people. I mean, that was a bad time for mortgage, right? So that's created such a fear in people, I think, that they see a bad turn in the market and they think that's right on the horizon every time. So they've been wrong the last 15 years, right? So
it's a scar on people's way of thinking, I think. I mean, honestly, I could talk about this kind of stuff for a long time because I love the psychology and the debating about it, but people are looking for something to be afraid of at all times. People want the end of the world. People want this. People want the market to crash. People want to feel like there's certain purposes for certain things. And it's not that detailed. It's not really what it is. We've gone through Y2K. We've gone through the crash of 07, 08. People want something like that, some catastrophic event to happen. So I think what that is put a stain on people's thought process of what they think what's going to happen. Like, there's got to be a crash. It happened last time, right? But we've talked about this before. It didn't happen for 50 years, 60 years before that, 70 years before that, whatever. Happened 2 times in 100 years before that. What are you really basing it off of? Because if you're basing it off of history, analytics, and actual facts, the odds are more in the favor of it not happening, right? And I can tell you you a personal story that somebody I know who actually did have that fear and had that thought process, that stain in their mind of what they thought was going to happen, that back in 2019, listening to the news, the market's going to crash, the market can't keep going up, blah, 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 was so hyper focused that they had to sell their house, right? Like, I got to get out of it. I don't want it to happen again. I was just pushing on that, and they sold their house, and they sold it at the market value at that time. It was a nice house in a nice neighborhood. But what they did is they sold too early because of the fear of what happened, 10 years prior, 11, 12 years prior, that cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars because that home was purchased and then resold by the new owner just 2 or 3 years, 2.5 years later, something like that, for about $300,000 or $350,000 more. The fear that that person had from something that had happened in the past, right, which is sometimes a good indicator, right? Like, I stubbed my toe, I now know not to stub my toe again, right? But it also creates fear to make bad decisions. And if you're emotional and you're not, and again, nobody's right or wrong. If the market did tank and he got out at the right time, then he would have been a hero. But that mistake cost him $250,000 of what he could have done in just a few years. And again, that's the fear that a lot of people have, right? I think that fear has dwindled down a little bit because nothing has happened. Because for a couple years, or people have been thinking, oh, the crash is coming, the crash is coming. And now it's not, and it's not, it's not. Like I say, it might happen. We can go to war tomorrow and the economy goes to shit, and that's something else happens, but it's not likely based off just raw generic data and history. So yeah, anyways, I don't know if I got off tangent there or not, but that's just a story of what I see, what fear people do.
Yeah.
And the fear of the header, like I said, we thought you're going to see a crash, and you haven't seen one yet, we'll put it that way.
Another thing that I was always thinking about here the last few years, just with all that talk of the crash, people my age, like even my age, I'm mid-30s, I just bought a house, but I've tried to help people that are my age, I went to school with, or this and that. They still have a fear, but I don't remember 2008 and 9. Like, I wasn't a homeowner at that time. It didn't affect me. It didn't affect my parents. So but that fear is still out there, and it's still in the news. It's still talked about. So even people my age that it didn't even affect you, they still have this traumatizing the stall in their thought process of life to buy a house just because it's out there. So it's just funny to see that the motive behind their thinking on buying a house today for that age group, 30 to 40, that didn't even get affected by it maybe at that time. So it's just still there. So it's like, you've seen people, they were watching the Russia war a few months ago, just live on their phones. They could seeing people get shot and blown up. So people want to watch stuff. They want chaos to happen that catches their eye. They like to tell. You get a rise when you get to tell somebody about it at the party or or whatever, that you have something to say. So I think it's become one of those things. And I don't think it's coming. I mean, we're helping people all the time that need help. Like you said, interest rate doesn't matter. They're going to make more money on the interest rate than what they're borrowing. They need to consolidate 25% credit card debt to get rid. Let's do a 7% instead of 25% of my credit cards. That makes sense. All that fear, enhanced all the outside chatter and noise that I think people listen to way too much now. So yeah,
you didn't even have to experience it. You just had to hear about it. People love fear.
That's what's curious to me, is people my age, the motive of the fear is still there, even though they didn't go upside down on their house in 2009, but they, they hear about it. So it's just strange to see that.
An excuse. It's a reason not to do something. So
right. It's still out there. It's still a thing, but I mean, from every indicator, from every side, you were talking about Freddie Mac, house prices are still going up. I'm scared from people my age. I was very fortunate. I got lucky this last year. I pulled the trigger. I bought a house. I wish I would have bought 3 years ago, and I probably would have saved, whatever, who knows. But people my age are just, I feel like their ship is sailing almost on the idea of buying a house unless they hit the lottery, because these house prices are still going up. They're not going to tank. I don't know what they're thinking. I can't imagine being crippled by that fear of a market going the other way like this. And just, I feel sad almost at times for people my age. So
yeah, I want to touch on that too, because if you're a first time home buyer and you're in the whole, I'm waiting till next year, and I'm waiting for this, and I'm waiting for it to drop, you might be waiting forever for that. We went over this in a previous video, I think, about the stats of how old you are as a first-time home buyer and how old you are as a second-time home buyer. And I believe it was 30s, mid to late 30s for a first time. And by the time you buy your second home, the average person's in their mid to late 50s, And there's other stuff that you should be afraid of, or not afraid of, but you should be concerned with or address. For example, what are you going to do when you can't afford an agent and there's no longer commissions going to buyer's agents. Therefore, nobody wants to represent you unless you're paying it yourself. That's a possibility of something that can happen with the recent lawsuit, right? With the real estate agents, right? That they don't have to pay the buyers. It should all go to the seller's side, right? So what are you going to do when you can't get somebody to help you buy a house? Or if you do get somebody to help you, got to pay it out of pocket. You're not paying 3% or 3.5% down. You're paying 6% or 6.5% down, which is more money out of your pocket. So not only do you lose out on 3, 5, 6% appreciation that you wait for 1 year, you might lose out on another 3% there of commission fees that you have to pay, or 2%, right? What else are you missing out on? There's a lot. You're worried about dropping a rate 1 or 2%, but you're going to give up 6 to 9% of equity, which is a lot bigger number than a loan rate that's amortized over 30 years. So the mind is in the wrong place, I guess is what I'm saying, because people don't want to look a little further or dig a little deeper into what the real numbers of what their decisions are. They're looking at what they're being told and what's on the surface. And anybody who looks at what's on the surface misses all the gold underneath the dirt. So
I like that. Yeah, no, I mean, even the people I was talking about, even the people I talked about, they were qualified. They were well qualified. They had a good down payment. They had all the things that you would want when you're buying a house, but they didn't want their payment more than $3,000, which, okay, well, I mean,
I almost feel like you have to with those people, I feel like you have to I hate saying it because I hate the kind of tactics of the way people communicate or sell people like that, where they say calling people out oh, you're afraid, you're not going to do it because you're afraid to do it. But it literally is the problem. I don't know how to explain it to people. I think it comes into arrogance and stubbornness. I wanted this and this is all it's going to be. Well, then that means you're going to have to compromise with something else, right? Because there's a balance in life. I compromise, whatever, going out every night to a nice restaurant so I could live in a house and have a nice car, or whatever the case is, right? I mean, you could have it all, but you will compromise with certain things in your life no matter what. That's what makes life exciting and fun and changing all the time. So, but yeah, first time home buyers, that's my biggest concerns with you. Let's see, one other point I was going to touch on too is something you said a couple minutes ago about why people are doing it, paying off high credit cards and whatnot, combining credit cards, right? There's not many other purposes. You're not restructuring a debt to get a lower rate or payment right now, just for, ha-has and giggles, right? But when it comes to borrowing money, do people care about rates or pricing, or do they care about fixing their problem? Because you got credit cards that are 3 times more than what you would pay on a home loan, typically 2 to 3 times. People get car title loans that I've seen them anywhere from 20 to 80% interest on those things. Investors borrow money at 20 to 30% a lot of times, or give up equity to be able to get a deal done. But these are all people that do it because there's a reason for doing it. Why did you put everything on your credit card? You needed money at that time. It was easier. Whatever you needed to get your car fixed, whatever the problem was, right? You had to put it on there, and you didn't care about that. But why do you care so much about paying a third or a half or a third of what that payment is, or that interest is, to get something that will actually better you? I don't think people understand that. I think people, again, going back to what you said, are afraid that they got something, because people with money, they hold it, right? Oh, I got a little savings, I'm going to hold it, I don't want to lose it. And then when you want something and you're focused on something, that's what's going to happen, right? I don't want to lose it. You're probably going to lose it. So I think, I don't know what to think, I guess. I don't know why people think that way, but you're willing to go spend 20, 30, 40% on credit cards, title loans, probably what student loans accumulate to after all the years of deferment that people never pay on them anyways, because they never get paid off usually. You'll do all of that, but you're scared to risk the equity. I get it. You're risking your home, basically, is kind of how you look at it, right? But then you don't have the discipline in the first place. So I don't know. What's your thought on that? I mean, rates are soaring right now. This was a horrible week or 2 weeks, maybe, where rates soared back up. Yeah. I mean, it's not like it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, so it's gone up. But what's your take on that? And then we'll probably cut it off here.
Yeah. I mean, the thought process on that. I'm working with the lady right now. She's on the fence. I mean, she said, I can hold I don't want to lose she has a 4.75 rate. So we're not talking 1% Sally over here. So she's almost at 5%. She's going to have to take it to 6% on her cash out loan and pay off close to $100,000.
Great rate right now. What the heck?
Yeah. So that's what I'm literally, I laid it out to her. I said, what's your combined credit cards? The interest rates, we did it all. We added up all her interest rates together along with her mortgage. She's at 10%, a little over 10% with her mortgage included. So I
combined
said,
rate, mortgage
combined
and
rate
debts
with
and
all
everything.
her credit cards. She's got cars in there. She's got a bunch of credit cards, and she has a solar lien that's on the house too. So combined, she's at 10.5%, let's say. And I said, you'd rather pay 10.5% on all this than just 6% on this. at the same amount of, and it's literally going to cash flow her $4,500, close to that, less money per month that she's paying in minimum payments on all those things compared to packing it into her mortgage. Yeah, what is the motive behind that thinking? Like, it's just the strangest thing. You can lay it out. You can smack them in the face with, here's $5,000 and you're going to be paying less interest. But no, I don't want to do that. Like, what would you tell somebody like that?
I mean, honestly,
and obviously everybody's not great with numbers and money, but that's getting pretty elementary with math. I mean,
well,
right?
There's a problem or a reason why. So what am I going to tell somebody in that situation? I'm not going to tell them anything personally. I'm going to ask them what their reasoning is on it. Like, again, there might be a strategy. Like, I don't want to do it because I don't want to tie it to my house, because I don't want to risk my house. I don't trust myself with money, and I know I'm just going to not pay it. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe it's, my grandma's probably going to pass away in a year and leave me $1 million. I'm going to pay it off all then. Maybe she lives 20 more years. I don't know, right? There could be those scenarios I've come across. So whatever it is, I would say I'm not going to, when I'm talking to somebody, I don't want to tell them anything. I want them to understand what I'm showing them. So, and if I'm not understanding it, I might have to show them it, 20 different ways to make it make sense. And I still might not get through to somebody like that, right? Because again, like we just said, people are stubborn. I want that $3,000 a month payment. Okay, I'll give you a $3,000 a month payment, but you're still paying $8,000 over here on all this other stuff. But what do you really want? So to me, like I said, I got to dig, we talked about this before. I'm not deep enough in what their actual problem is. If somebody can't tell me, like if they're not interested in something that blatantly makes sense, then I haven't done my job to get deep enough into finding out what that real problem is. This is how I judge myself, basically. And that means I got to go back and I got to ask more questions, and I got to find out what really, really is going on. Because there's a reason for everything. The problem is with all that fear we just talked about, we bury all that fear with different excuses and reasoning and all these other things that we put in our head that we tell ourselves. Not that they're true or not, but that's what we convince ourselves to believe, so we can bury that fear. And sometimes that fear is like 3, 5, 7 layers deep. And it's our job to get the shovel out and dig to get to the bottom, get to the root of the fear and find out what it is. Clear the fear. So I think like something like that, yeah, there's something there. And I'm going to tell you, I think a lot of it, like I said, people don't trust themselves. They're afraid that they will put their house in jeopardy because they can't or know themselves better than than we think they are, and maybe won't do it because they got themselves in a hole already. So they might get themselves in a hole again, but now it's bigger because it's my house. I have seen that one come up quite a bit, where I don't want to put it on my house. I'd rather go into lates and ruin my credit and life rather than lose my house. And it's sad, but a lot of those people end up losing their house no matter what you do or get around it. Right. So you don't want that. We want to protect everybody, and keep digging, I guess, is the big thing. There's something there that we haven't found. There's a reason that we haven't broke through. And once you can get that reason, once you can break through that real issue, not the issue that we hear on the surface, the real issue, then you might make it make more sense. Or you'll have an understanding of why it doesn't make sense to her the way you're explaining it, because there might be some missing information that you don't know about. But I think that's the biggest thing. Like I said, find out what those fears are and find the fear, baby. We already know how to find the benefit, but we don't know how to find the problem, the fear, the situation, the what needs fixing part of each person. Right. Because any person that calls us or talks to us or talks to anybody in the industry or any other industry, there's always a reason, right? You don't just call a random lawyer up and start talking to them when you don't have some legal issue that might be happening. Like, hey, attorney at law Bob, just wanted to say hi, see what's going on. If I ever needed, I'm asking for a friend. If I ever need assistance, I'm asking for a friend. No, there's some kind of motive or something behind it. So find the problem, baby. So yeah, I think we've gone over our limit, probably talked too much anyways, like we normally do. But if you thought there was going to be a crash up until now, you are wrong. Up until early first quarter 2024, you are wrong. There has not been a crash. There has been slow moving. There has been less low inventory. There has been things not selling, but the values and the prices are still going up. But crash? No, not yet.
As of 30 minutes ago when we started this, still no. Yeah.
Still no. Yeah. Still no crash happening. Still going.
If you're waiting for the crash, you might have been waiting for Y2K. Yeah. On that New Year's Eve.
Right. So again, sorry for talking so long about this one. Sometimes we get talking and we don't want to shut up. I get passionate about it. Will gets passionate about it. We have our own views. We have our own thoughts. We try to learn a little bit from every conversation we do as well. And hope it helps other people out there to understand it. And if it's somebody that does have fears of making a decision, then talk to somebody, talk to us, talk to friends, talk to family, talk to somebody else. Get past those fears so you can find the root of your problem so you can fix it. That's the best advice I can give to anybody out there right now. If you like this video and you want us to talk more about more stuff, and maybe we'll talk quicker about more stuff too in less time, then let us know. Like, subscribe, send us a message, or just call us. The old way of doing business where you pick up a phone and actually talk to somebody. We still do that. So hope that helps.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Peace and love to all.